My lords, today we're going to do something a little bit different. The Machine Age has just released, and Stellaris and all of its DLCs are on sale at Humble Bundle and probably at time of release via the Steam store. One of the most common questions I see on Reddit, in my YouTube comments and on my Discord relate to what DLC should I buy first. So here, I'm going to attempt to answer that for you. Check both platforms, see what the best price is. My Humble Bundle link is in the description and the pinned comment. I intend to do this list a little bit differently to a conventional one, mostly because none of the DLC is really essential, and some things like Plantoids, which let you play as plants, are great if that's what you want to do, but if you're not bothered about that, then it probably isn't worth buying. As such, my categories are must-have, extremely good, good but not essential, only if you specifically want to play as, and finally, literally free, go and download it. So with all that said, let's get into it. And we'll start with the anniversary portraits. These add 3 additional species portraits, the fairy dragon, the larvae, and the peacock avian. They also add 5 additional species portraits previously only available as a pre-order bonus, and they're described as dinosaur bird, evil porcupine, fungoid infected mammalian, hydra/xenomorph, and shadowy arthropod. This pack is literally free, you should go and get this. The next 6 DLCs that I'll talk about are all species packs. Stellaris breaks its DLC content down into different loose categories. So generally speaking, species packs would allow you to play as another species and bring with it a themed origin or 2, and maybe some species themed civics as well. They all tend to be significantly cheaper than the other types of DLCs, story packs and expansions. So starting with Toxoids. Toxoids gives you 2 origins, Knights of the Toxic God and Overtuned. Both of these are fantastic origins. Knights of the Toxic God allows for a wonderful narrative playthrough where you lead your empire in a quest to find the toxic god that once ravaged your homeworld. Overtuned allows you to play as genetic maniacs obsessed with the pursuit of genetic output at all costs. Both of these are wonderful origins. Toxoids also adds several industrial and toxic themed traits, such as Relentless Industrialists, which allows your people to ignore all regulations and effectively turn your once lovely worlds into tomb worlds. You get new civics, one of which is Noxious, and you also get a new ship set and a bunch of new toxic looking portraits to play as. Toxoids is one of the more recent species packs and is probably one of the better ones, certainly in terms of value for money. You get a ton of new species and the new ship set as well. I'd place Toxoids in good but no way essential, and I'd note species packs would really have to be exceptional to be placed any higher than this. Aquatics. Aquatics gives you 2 new origins, Here Be Dragons and Ocean Paradise. Here Be Dragons certainly being the better of the 2, where you start off in a unique symbiotic relationship with an ether drake as a guardian, as long as you keep it happy. You get the Angler's Civic, which is very strong. This replaces your farmer jobs with anglers and pearl divers on your agricultural districts. Aquatics is quite similar to Toxoids in terms of what it offers for the dollar value. The origins are both fun, although the dragon is certainly the better of the 2 in my opinion. Aquatics, like the other species pack, gives you a new ship set. The Aquatics ship set is arguably the best in the game, and of course you get a bunch of fishy portraits to go along with it. This one for me is in the same category as Toxoids. It's great, but it's not essential, unless you specifically wanted to play as a fish. Necroids. Necroids gives you the Necrophage origin, which allows you to convert other species into your primary species. There are several new death-themed civics, such as Reanimated Armies, which is basically undead zombie armies, a new ship set, which is certainly up there with Aquatics for one of the best in the game, and of course new portraits and a new advisor. Necroids for me is fantastic if you specifically want to play as a Necroid origin and or with the civics that come with it, but I think it offers a little bit less than Toxoids and Aquatics. The origin is fun to play and it's certainly strong, but there's no real event chain tied to it, it's just pure mechanics. As such, I'd put this in only if you specifically want to play as category. Lithoids. Lithoids is in my opinion potentially one of the weaker of the DLCs. Unless you specifically want to play as rock people. You get the standard stuff with the species pack, for example portraits and an advisor. And if you play as a Lithoid, you'll get access to a couple of new special resource producing traits. The origin that comes with Lithoids is Calamitous Birth, which in fairness is probably one of the weakest mechanically, and potentially the most uninteresting thematically. You also get 2 new civics, one of which is Void Hives, which is sort of exciting if you specifically want to play as a hive mind Void Dweller, but this for me is more or less the same as Necroids, and it goes in the only buy if you specifically want to play as. Humanoids. Humanoids is, in my opinion, the best of the species packs. We know from the data that over 50% of all Stellaris games are played using human portraits, and I'd imagine a substantial proportion of the other 50% use some form of humanoid portrait. I think it's quite safe to say that it's popular. Humanoids gives you 3 new civics, one of which is arguably the best organic civic in the game in Master Crafters. And you also get Clone Army, which is and has been for a long time the best organic origin in the game. Mechanically, Humanoids is top tier, and of course you get a bunch of new portraits and a humanoid ship set as well. My personal favourite origin is Clone Army, and I'd also point out that this comes with a proper event chain with some lore behind it as well. As such, I'd put Humanoids in extremely good. Plantoids. Last and probably least is Plantoids. I'm sorry, Idyllic Bloom lovers, you know who you are. Plantoids is very similar to Lithoids in that if you don't specifically want to play as a plant, then this probably isn't for you. Plantoids gives you a new origin, Fruitful Partnership, and several new plant-specific species traits, and 2 civics, Catalytic Processing, which incidentally is very good, and Idyllic Bloom, which certainly has a cult following. Of course, you can get the ship sets and the portraits as well, which is important as I know some people do like to play as their cabbage. Plantoids for me goes in the only if you specifically want to play as a flower category. So that brings me to an end of the species packs. I will say although none are must have, when on sale they are often under $5, which does represent quite good value for money in my opinion, certainly with something like Humanoids. Next we move on to the story packs. Story packs are expansions of a smaller scale. Unlike regular expansions which focus on adding new gameplay mechanics, story packs' main focal point is adding more flavour to the game, and we'll begin with First Contact. First Contact offers a heap of new content, 3 new origins, and Fear of the Dark is certainly a standout for me, but all come with detailed event chains and are unique in their own right. Payback and Broken Shackles introduce the evil, abusive megacorp known as MSI, and First Contact also introduces new ways to engage with pre-FTL species. Cloaking was added with First Contact as well, although I think in reality that's probably quite a minor addition. For me, First Contact was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed playing all 3 origins, but as stated specifically Fear of the Dark. Despite this, I'd rank First Contact as good, but in no way essential. I don't think it adds vastly more content than Toxoids or Aquatics, and I do find myself often ignoring the pre-FTL events and just conquering the planets. Maybe if you play a more xenophilic lifestyle, this one might be for you. Next is Ancient Relics. Ancient Relics, for people who watch me regularly, is obviously going to be one of my favourite DLCs. It's this sort of stuff that in my opinion makes Stellaris what it is. Ancient Relics adds a ton of dig sites to the game, most of which are covered in detail on the channel. It also adds 2 new precursors, which are S tier in both theme and story, the Baul and the Zeroni, as well as a bunch of new relics as well. Finally, you get the Remnants origin, which is and has been one of my favourite origins to fall back on over the years. Although I should note you'll also need Federations for Remnants, but I'll get to Federations later in the video. Relics is also considerably cheaper than the other story packs. In fact, it's priced the same as a species pack. All these reasons combined, for me, makes Ancient Relics a must-have. Distant Stars. Distant Stars is very similar in theme to Ancient Relics. It makes your in-game universe larger and more filled out. Distant Stars adds the L cluster, dozens of new anomalies and events, and several large leviathans. It, like Relics, is at the same price point as a species pack. And again, for the same reasons as Relics, this is a must-have for me. The last story pack is Astral Planes. Astral Planes expands on the dig site mechanic from Ancient Relics and allows for a choice of how to deal with various situations and events that you'll face. It's a lot like an Ancient Relics 2.0, but it also adds a mid-game crisis, aka the Formless. Astral Planes was mired with a poor launch, partly due to the patch that came with it, and perhaps due to how it was billed as new planes to explore, but in reality was really Dig Sites 2.0. I personally enjoyed Astral Planes, but I do enjoy the additional lore and storytelling that came with it. At approximately $20, it's one of the more expensive DLCs, and for this reason I've put it in the only if you specifically want to play as. If you want to experience the different Astral Plane event trees, then absolutely this is fantastic, but if you're not too bothered about that, then I'd probably not worry too much about Astral Planes. Next we look at the 3 mechanical expansions, Galactic Paragons, Synthetic Dawn, and Leviathans, and we'll start with Galactic Paragons. Paragons adds a brand new council mechanic, allowing you to shape and assign the leadership team of your empire. It adds a bunch of new special Paragon leaders that are unique and can be recruited, all of which have various special traits. It also comes with 4 legendary Paragons with very detailed event chains, the Under One Rule Origin, which is very detailed and generally considered a fan favourite, as well as a ton of leader specific traits, allowing you to level up and shape your leaders however you wish. Paragons really changed the game when it was released. It allowed for a ton of new mechanical playstyles centered around leader progression. Mechanically, this expansion added a lot, and it gives a lot in the lore department as well. I'm hesitant to make Paragons a must-have, but it's certainly very close. Perhaps on another day it may be a must-have, but I think today it goes in extremely good. Synthetic Dawn. Synthetic Dawn introduced machine intelligences to Stellaris, and this was certainly a game changer, as machines quickly became one of the most popular ways to play the game. With a few game-defining civics, such as Determined Exterminator or Rogue Servitor, Synthetic Dawn is a bit like a species pack, but stuffed full of extra stuff, and it's still the same price as a species pack. You'll get a ton of robotic-specific portraits, one of the best voice advisors in the game, and some robot-related events, like machine uprisings. Given the cost and what Synthetic Dawn brings to Stellaris, it goes in must-have for me. And finally, Leviathans, the last of the mechanical expansions. Leviathans is priced alongside the species packs, but it is more of a fills out the galaxy sort of expansion. You'll get access to the enclaves, i.e. people like the Curators, and you'll also get various guardians like the Scavenger Bot, Stellar Devourer, Dimensional Horror, and so on. The War in Heaven event is tied to Leviathans, which is when the fallen empires decide to throw down, and you'll be pulled in to fight for one of them, or neither of them, or both. And additionally you'll get 5 rather cute portraits, one of which includes the Priki. Given the price, and the content that this adds, I'm again edging between must-have and extremely good. I'm a big fan of the DLCs that fill out the galaxy, but I do think this adds a little less than Relics and Distant Stars. So for that reason, I'm putting Leviathans in extremely good. And finally, we're on to what Paradox calls the major expansions. These are designed to change the game considerably, introducing new and improved gameplay mechanics, as well as many kinds of flavour and various balance tweaks. They're generally priced at the $20 mark, and we'll begin with Overlord. Overlord certainly changed the way that Stellaris is played. It introduced the vassalization mechanics to the game, and basically brought along with it the vassalization meta that we've had for the past few years. You'll get 5 new origins with Overlord, and some really good ones at that, including Teachers of the Shroud and Progenitor Hive, which are both extremely good mechanical origins. Orbital Rings, Hyper Relays, and the Quantum Catapult were also added with Overlord, but its key feature is the specialised subjugation routes, i.e. Bulwark, Prospectorium, and Scholarium. Overlord, I think, perfectly fits the good but in no way essential description. It is good. It adds some very cool stuff and some great origins, but when you compare its dollar cost to the other expansions, it doesn't quite make it for me. As such, this goes in the good, but by no means essential category. Next we have Nemesis. Nemesis introduced the Become the Crisis event chain, where you and your empire set about doing horrible things to the galaxy in a misguided attempt to ascend, tearing apart the physical universe in the process. This is quite a lot of fun. You also get access to the espionage tree, which is widely ignored by the player base as it doesn't really do a lot, and the Galactic Custodian, which is pretty cool if you want to roleplay becoming Emperor Palpatine. Nemesis adds some great features, but it doesn't add a lot for the dollar value. If you do want to play the Become the Crisis path, then obviously this is for you. But if you're not interested in that, I'd probably look at some of the other DLCs first. As such, I'll put this in the only if you really specifically want to play as pile. Federations. I should start Federations by saying I was actually shocked by how much stuff you get with the Federations DLC. You get 8 new origins, some of which are the best and most thematically fun in the game. These include Shattered Ring, On the Shoulders of Giants, Doomsday and Scion, and some of the other Federation themed origins. The Juggernaut was added with Federations, and the Mega Shipyard megastructure. Plus you obviously get all the Federation stuff as well, and the Galactic Community. This DLC really fills out the game, and for me, even though it's one of the more expensive ones, it goes in must-have. Megacorp. Megacorp gives me mixed feelings, because on one hand, if you don't want to play as a Megacorp, it sounds like it's not for you, but you do end up getting some really great additional features with Megacorp, such as an upgrade to Galactic Wonders, which lets you build the Matter Decompressor, and Arcology Project, which adds the ability to build EQ Monopoly. Additionally, of course, Megacorp gives you the option to play as a megacorporation that has monopolized your home planet and now wishes to do the same thing in the stars. If Megacorp didn't come with all the extra stuff, I'll put it further down the list, but given the extra content, I'm going to put it in extremely good, and frankly, it's quite close to a must-have. Apocalypse. Apocalypse, which incidentally has probably the best Stellaris trailer of all time, gives players access to the planet-killing weapons, and adds the Marauders and the Khan mid-game crisis. Oh, and you get Titans as well. While all those things are very cool, Apocalypse is priced at $20, which I feel is a little expensive versus some of the other choices. If you consider that you could buy Distant Stars and Relics for the same price, I feel Apocalypse is perhaps a bit expensive. Planet-killing weapons are fantastic, but I think this goes in the only if you specifically want to play as section. Next we have Utopia. Utopia is generally considered the best Stellaris DLC, and here's why. First, it unlocks the 4 Ascension paths: Genetic, Psionic, Cybernetic, and Synthetic. These are effectively some of the biggest changes to Stellaris since its release, and they add a ton of thematic and mechanical flavour. Utopia also adds hive minds, allowing players to experience a teeming army of bugs devouring the galaxy, or an idyllic peace-loving butterfly nest. Plus, Utopia adds both the Dyson Sphere and Ringworlds, massive megastructures that may shape the way that you play the game, and are certainly quite fun to build. Utopia for the Ascensions alone is a must-have, everything else is a wonderful bonus. And finally we have the Machine Age. Now please bear in mind I'm recording this a few days before the Machine Age gets released, but I have been playing early access, and I've been loving it. Machine Age is one of the biggest content drops Stellaris has had in literal years. You get access to a brand new endgame crisis in Satana the Synthetic Queen, a new player-driven crisis, Cosmogenesis, 3 new Ascension paths for machines, the ability to play as individualistic machines, 2 new ship sets, a ton of new portraits, and loads of extra lore around the Fallen Empires and the Synth Queen backstory. Machine Age is priced at $25, which makes it the most expensive Stellaris DLC. However, I feel like considering the amount of content it comes with, it's essentially Nemesis and 2 species packs, plus extras, I think it's fairly priced. I'm torn between placing Machine Age on a must-have level or on an extremely good level. What pushes it into must-have for me is the additional endgame crisis. All the other stuff is very, very good and a lot of fun, particularly if you enjoy playing as a machine, but the addition of another endgame crisis for me just carries it over the line into must-have. So that's the tier list complete. Thanks for watching. Remember, if you want to pick up the Machine Age or any of the DLCs, they are currently as of May 8th on sale via Humble Bundle, and you can find a link in the description or the pinned comment. As ever, if you want to hear more from me, please click the video on screen now.